You're able to see the screen, right?
Yes.
Let me go. Okay. Okay, recording has started. Okay, let's get started. So, yeah, so this is Manish. I'm the group leader of the Architect Group in Singapore. Thanks all for joining. Along with me, I have Smriti here to do the session today. Uh, for those who are joining new, I think we just want to give an introduction about ourselves. So, I am a Salesforce MVP and marketing champion running this group. Again, before running the Architect Group, I was running the developer group for almost 7 years now. So, a couple of years back, or even last year, I think I've switched from developer group and we have created the Architect Group. I'm currently running the Architect Group. I'm also part of the other dreaming events happening. Back in 2020, we started the Singapore Dreaming as well. So I was the core team member. Along with that, I also run some events. MC Square, the Marketing Cloud event. By profession, I'm a Salesforce delivery head and solution architect. I'm currently working at CPR Vision for almost 4 years now. Yeah. So I do a lot of not only Marketing Cloud, but I also run. I also do projects on sales service, community cloud, and I also publish some courses on Udemy for Marketing Cloud to be specific, and I also blog at SFTC Fanboy. That's my online nick. So today the topic is have fun with API, the easy integration tutorial for with Salesforce. I think this session, right, it's mostly for those who wants to get their basics right and also wants to learn Salesforce in a very fun way, because we have very interesting speaker, I would say, because I don't think anyone has ever done a the series on Salesforce topics in a very fun and comic way. She has also published comic books, I think a couple of them now, one on LWC as well. So one of them, I find it very interesting, was the API integration, because that is something not just for the current architects, but also especially for those who are getting started their journey into development or even integration or even to become an architect, right? So these are very basics, and it's very important to get your fundamentals right. So that's why we have organized this session. So I'll hand it over to Smriti and let her introduce in a better way, because I don't want to miss some of those as well. It will be very great for her to share about herself and then get into the topic as well. So Smriti, over to you. I'll stop sharing. You can continue from here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it means a lot to me. And thank you so much for the introduction. It was very nice of you. So I will share the screen. Just a moment.
So for attendees, feel free to use your chat. There's Q&A as well. You can ping questions, or if you have any other topics that you want to learn. Again, it's the end of the session, but if you want to have any questions in between, just drop the note, use the chat as well. We'll try to answer the questions throughout the session as well, or at the end. Yeah. Over to you, Smriti.
Thank you. So Manish has already introduced me, but just little bit about me. So I'm a blogger and YouTuber at SFDC Amplified. You can check that out. I'm sales service and CPQ consultant, 6 certified. Earlier, I published a Udemy course on Health Cloud, and I love to make fun and unique content which can make learning more fun. I hope I can keep improving in that. And I forgot to mention about the work, but thank you, Manish, for mentioning that. So if you want to connect with me, I have the LinkedIn, which where I'm very active, so you can connect with me there. So the topic is like have fun with APIs, easy Salesforce integration tutorial. So the topics which I will be covering is like what is API? There is a lot of technical jargon around it regarding client, server, request, response, HTTP methods, status code. So we will be talking about that. Then how to use the Postman for testing of it, the benefits of API, the call in versus call out integration, which is very important in terms of interview purpose. And again, the remote site settings and named credentials have been always important. So, about that. detailed discussion, and then the bonus points about lots of demo, and we will be having lots of fun with APIs. So let's get started. So you would have taken or explored Expedia to have flights here and there. So you would have seen that Expedia is able to fetch all the flight details, from the seat details to the cost, everything from different flights. Well, how is that possible? That is possible because of APIs. You see, like here is Air India, Indigo, SpiceJet, or any flight. It is able to access because it makes the request and is able to get the response. Now, how it does that? So, just a quick, so like I'm in the Expedia, and for example, I want to go from Delhi to Singapore. So you see, like Indigo is showing all the timings and the dates and all the information. But how it will be getting the information from airlines? It's because there is a middleman which is called API. Let's take another example. So, story time. Suppose you are feeling hungry, so you want to order biryani from Food Panda. Now, as you are eagerly waiting, what you will do is you will check the app, and the app you will be seeing what is the location of the delivery person. That's what we do, right, when we are feeling hungry. So you get the exact location where the delivery person is. And this is because of the Google Maps API. Do you think that Food Panda will do all the hard work of making something so complex when Google Maps is already present? So that's the role of it. Now let's understand in more detail. So API stands for Application Programming Interface, which acts as a middleman, which helps in communicating between two applications. So here, Food Panda can communicate with Google Maps API because of the Google Maps API. Now let's discuss some technical jargon around API. So we have Food Panda, we have Google Maps API. So what Google Maps has done is it has enabled the Google Maps API so that Food Panda can make the request, and based on that it gets the response. Let's talk a little bit more about it. So you see any custom app, it can be Food Panda, it can be Uber, Swiggy, any app is there. It will make a request. We will talk about the HTTP GET or any methods about that later. But it will make the request, it will hit the endpoint, and it will get the response, which will be in JSON, XML, or even text format. So that's how the technical jargon works. Now I said that there is response in JSON or XML format. So here is the sample. We will be going more deep in it, but see, like we have the XML and we have the JSON. So for example, we are fetching employees information. So in XML, it will be giving the name, age, or whatever information it holds. In JSON, it will be like key value pair. Like we have maps in Salesforce, exactly the same way, similar way, it will be showing. It's very easy to read and lightweight, and we are using JSON a lot, so we will be talking more about it. Now, what happens if Food Panda sends wrong request? What exactly it means is that Food Panda is like maybe sending a request to wrong URL, or it only has read request to basically see the driver's location, but actually it sends a delete request. What happens then? Will Google accept it? Of course not, right? It will send a status code that no, you can't do that. So that's where the status codes come into picture. So we have like 200 status codes, 3, 4, 5. So the common ones are like 200 status codes. I will show you that also. So it shows that it is successful and it will give the response. 400 is like client error code, that there is some error and it will not accept. And 5xx codes are like server error codes. So like that, it will give you all the information about the status codes, whether the request is successful or not successful. We should be seeing that. Now let's see a live demo. So here we have in API, very interesting one where we see all the funny and cute cat pictures. So let's say we want to send the request and get these pictures. Now, how we will be doing that? Before going to Salesforce directly, we have to know how to do API testing. And the very good tool is Postman. Postman helps in doing the API testing very nicely because it gives a very good UI. So you can have the Postman with you, and you can also have it on your desktop installed. Anywhere it's fine. Then you go to the workspace. So here I'm in my workspace. I click on the plus icon, and here I see. Okay, so think about it like a documentation. Here it doesn't have much detail. We will go to a bigger API documentation, but here it says the URL and then the status code. That is, like, for example, if we want to put 100. So how we will do it? Let's copy this, enter this. Status code, it was 100. So let's put that. And see, here we have the HTTP methods we talked about. So we will be talking it in more detail. But for example, we just want to retrieve the information. That is, we just want to get the pictures. So we will be saying, okay, 100. And then we'll be doing the send. See here, the status is 200. 200 was everything is successful. And here we see a cute cat picture, right? Similarly, you want something scary, 207. Let's see that if that works. The same thing, you can put 207 and click on send, and you see a scary cat picture. So that's how the Postman API testing works. You'll be doing a little bit more of it, but that's the basic of it. Now let's talk about HTTP methods. Now how we will talking about it using the Skippy popsicles. If someone doesn't know, it came in Shark Tank in season 1 and got all 5 shark deals. So let's talk about it. So let's talk about the get request. It's about retrieving, viewing the current inventory. For example, Skippy Popsicles is there and inventory is there, and we want to fetch that. Like, see that, okay, what inventory they have, what kind of popsicles flavors they have. So it will come like mango, orange, these flavors they have. So for that, we will do get. Like the way we did it for cat, we were getting the cat pictures. Same way, we can get the Skippy Popsicles information. Next is post. It's about adding the new flavor. Now, if you want to add something, like we want to add a blueberry flavor, so we will be using post. Now is put. Put is like replacing the existing popsicles. So, for example, instead of blueberry, I want strawberry flavor. So I can just put that in for the Skippy popsicles, and that would be coming. And now update is like partial update. Partial means like put is like completely changing. Patch is like partial update. Like we want to update the quantity of the blueberry, so we can do using the patch. So that's how patch works. And delete is remove flavor from the inventory system. So if we want to like just delete mango flavor, we can use the delete. These methods you will be keep on using, and especially a tip for interview, put and patch are asked a lot. So have a look at it. Now let's go for the demo. So here I'm in the JSON placeholder. So like I want to test all those methods, right? So JSON placeholder helps in creating a fake request. And because of that, we can do all the testing. So that is something we can play around with. So again, it's like a documentation where we can see that what we need to do to make the request and get the response. So see, we have all the HTTP methods are supported. So let's check few of them here. So see the guide for the example. We also need to know how to read a documentation, which is very important because that is something which becomes very overwhelming for someone who is new. So one of the things which we want to know is what is the URL which we are going to hit. URL is something like, okay, This is what we need to hit to get the request. So see, I came here, I can click here also, and I can get the information. It gives me all the information. Now how to fetch it using Postman. So getting a resource, it says if you post like this, you should be getting. Let's try that. So again, I will go to Postman and see, for get also it says post, so don't get confused. And we will be doing the send. So see, the status code is 200, means everything is okay, and it gives us the information. So because I put 1, so it gives me information about the ID1, the title, body, and all the information as expected. So this was the output which it was going to do. Suppose I removed all the information it should be showing. So like this it is coming. So that's how our get request comes, like retrieving all the information that we got. But how about, for example, let's take another one. We want to do is like post. So post also is post. Okay. So like we have checked listing all the resources. Let's create a resource. So we will be just copying here, and it says you have to put post. We have already post anyways, so we don't have to worry, and we'll be putting post. But what we need to post, like what we need to create. So what you need to do is you have to create. So basically title, body, and user ID. So let's put that title, body, user ID. If everything is correct, it should show 200. See, 200 created. And that's how it works. Similarly, we can see that put, patch, delete, all those you can get. Let's take one more. Let's take, for example, if you want to do patch. So we will be going patch. Patch is like partial update, right? So let me just Smriti and click on send. Patch. Okay, I have not put the ID. I think that was 101 or something. Let's see. Okay, so when we are putting patch, so we will be getting status 200. It's a fake response, so it's like that's how it works, but it is showing us that this is got updated. So we have put like title, and we have put like Smriti as we have made the change, and we are able to do. So like that, you can make the changes. Same goes with the delete. You simply go and you want to delete, you click on delete, and you simply click on send, and your status is 200, that yes, it is being deleted. So that's how it works. Now comes the difference between API and web services. For me, for a long time, it was very confusing because it is being used interchangeably. Like sometimes we say API, sometimes we say web service. So how exactly it works? So basically, API was created much before the internet or network came into existence. So what is an API? For example, you have mobile phone, and in that you have the calendar application, and based on that you click on calendar and you see dates and other information. So basically you are seeing, based because of the API, you are able to access the calendar and you are able to see the dates and all the information. This is a real-time example. Let's talk about Salesforce. When you're talking about Salesforce, you have system classes, exception classes. You're not worrying about what is underlying, but actually using it. Or if you are talking about the wire service in LWC, you are using it. So basically, when we are getting the information and utilizing it, and we don't utilize net as such, so API is a broader term. When we're talking about web service, it's like we are talking about exchanging information, and web service helps to do that. And web service we say when it is over the internet. So web service is kind of an API, but API is a broader term. So anything which helps in exchanging the data and it is a middleman, that is an API. And when it is over the internet, then we are saying web service. So REST and SOAP are both API and web services because it is used over the internet. Now let's talk about the benefits of API. So one of the benefits is like we saw that Food Panda was able to access the Google Maps so easily, and that's why so many food applications and Uber and Ola, these are into existence because they are able to just use the Google Maps easily. So basically they can work on the idea of building new features and instead of actually working on something which is already present. So that is efficiency. Then is security. Actually what is happening is Google Maps is letting you access the data of the location, and any unauthorized app can do that and misuse it. So Google will not want that, right? So security is like it will be having the API which will be like whatever information you want, only that you can retrieve. So that's where API is like a gatekeeper, retrieving only the information which you can do it. For example, you have read information but you cannot delete. So that's how the security works, that it just looks at it and what you can do and what you cannot do, what you can access. That's what it is. Then is cost efficient effective. Of course, if Zomato or Food Panda, any of them were creating something like Google Maps, it would be impossible. Same like when we are talking about Expedia, how it would be fetching all the airplanes information, it was like kind of impossible, it will be very costly, right? So that's why it becomes cost effective. Now a very important term comes is call in versus call out. And here there are two more terms, that is inbound versus outbound. So let's discuss that because this is asked a lot and we are a little confused somewhere here. So when we are talking about call in, that is inbound integration, it means then an external system initiates the contact with Salesforce. Means that external system makes the request to the Salesforce. They reach Salesforce. So for example, Skippy Popsicles reach Salesforce, makes the request. So that is the call in. When we are talking about the call out, that is the outbound integration. That is Salesforce making a request to get some information, to retrieve some kind of information. So weather API is one of the examples which we will be talking about, where Salesforce requests the weather API to check the current weather, or our cute cat pictures. That was another example. Here, Postman was making the request and getting all the information. So whenever call out is when like Salesforce is making the request, call in is when the other system is making the request to Salesforce. So that is something which you should remember. Now there's some terminology around it. When we're talking about call in, so that time connected app comes into play. When we are talking about call out, that time we have remote site settings and named credentials. Today we will be focusing on call out. So we will be talking about remote site settings and named credentials in very much detail. So we will be taking now the example of weather API. It will be having a little bit more in-depth documentation. So we will be seeing how to read an API documentation because that is very important. The request anatomy, the basics of little bit basics of authentication, and how to make a call out in Salesforce. So let's dive in. So I have the weather API. So you can have it, and it's you just simply have to log in, and then you can sign up, and then you can log in. And obviously, I can regenerate the API key, so it's just for the demo purpose. So now we will see what is API key. Don't worry. So now we come here. We see there's something called API documentation. We click on it, and here we are. So it gives us the information that okay, it helps in accessing the weather and what all information it does. Now if we come here, we talk about authentication. Now what is authentication? We'll go like little bit information about it. Like authentication, it says API access to the data is protected by API key. If at any time you find the API key has become vulnerable, please regenerate. So let's see what exactly it means. So what is authentication? So basically you have the security guard and it asks for your ID card. So it basically checks that who you say you are, you are actually that person. That's why it checks your ID, right? And that is what is authentication. Checking that what you say you are actually that person. Now there can be many types of authentication. Can you check your ID? It can check your driving license. It can check your passport. It can say no, you can just go. I don't want to check anything. Like in the CAT API case, it didn't check anything. So it was no authentication. It was like, oh, you can access freely. Or it can say okay API key, or it can say oh, basic authentication, JWT, auth, like any type of authentication. So we will be talking about API key here. So let's go there. So here it says API keys is the authentication type that you will be giving the key, and that's how I will be saying that yes, you are authorized and you can access the resource. Now comes the URL. This is very important. This is where we get confused. Here we have a base URL, and after that, I will come back to this. We have the current weather forecast, basically what you information you want after you hit weather API. Okay, after you enter the gate, which door you want to go, like what you want to access. So okay, I want to check current weather, no, I want to check forecast. So after the base URL, what you want to access, what resource you want to get, that's what the information it gives. So let's check about it little bit. So let's talk about request anatomy. So we have the URL, the base URL, which we just checked. So basically this is the base URL. V1, V2, V3, these are the versioning of the API because they keep on updating the API. So they have given like that. And then we have the URI. So basically the resource which we want to locate, right? So that is about it. Then if we go little down, we have the parameters. So we checked okay authentication, we checked okay what resource we want to get. Now we are checking the parameters. So we will see the required parameters. Obviously we can pass others as well based on our requirement. So we have the key that we need to pass. Key is something which we have here. And then we have the queue, that is the query parameter. Okay, city and other location, whatever you want to do. So these are the necessities. Other than that, days and all those things, they are not like not required. So we will be just checking about the required ones, but you can think of what is required and accordingly you can go. So based on that, we will be making our whole URL that okay, we want to access the current location, and then the key we will be passing, and queries, for example, we want to check the Lucknow location, we can do that. Still, if you are confused, okay, to make the whole URL, how to do that? Generally, more than often, these documentations help us in making our own URL. So in this case, they have that API Explorer. Here we will be copying the API key, and for example, I put Lucknow. We want it in the JSON format, so I will keep it JSON, and I will say show response. So see, it gives us whole information. So it will be giving us the key and the Q is Lucknow, the parameter, and then for example, it has added another parameter API equal to no, which we don't have to worry about. It's like it's about displaying air quality data, which we don't have to worry. So that's how it does. So let's firstly what we need to do before jumping to Salesforce. It will be easy to do the testing in Postman to be sure that okay, it's working properly. So simply we go to the Postman, do the send request, and see the status code is okay, and we get all the information beautifully. You see all the information we are getting. So that's how we are able to get successful request response out of the request we have made. Now that if once that is done, we will go to the next step. So here we are in the developer console, sorry, we in the org, and we will be going to the developer console. Once we click here, we go to developer console. So I have the class ready so that I can quickly explain you. So we have created a public class, and in that we have the method. So we have created it as static, so we don't have to create an instance. And now how we make a request is by using HTTP request and HTTP response. Now what exactly it is? So see, we have HTTP classes, and we have to use this class to initiate the HTTP request and response. So HTTP class and HTTP request class, response class, they have their own methods. So we have to instantiate it and then utilize those methods. So we will be having the HTTP, then we will be having the request, then in the request, we have the methods set endpoint and set method. We will come back. So let's go to HTTP request class. See, if you go down, you'll be seeing all the methods here, where you can see set endpoint, set method, and you will get a beautiful example as well, where you can see like how it is being done. So it becomes easy for you. So you don't have to, like, it's not something which you have to mug up, but actually see that what the classes talk about. So you will be putting the endpoint and the method. Method is like get, post, patch, delete, right? Now you want to retrieve the weather information, so it will be get. Now let's talk about endpoint, which we have already discussed. So we have the whole URL, and I have put like location as Lucknow. You can change it. So that's how you are putting it. We have just talked about it. The URL, the resource, the key, and then the query parameter that okay, Lucknow I want to access. Now I want to store the response. So I'll be storing the response after making the request. And now here again, once we are talking about the response, if we go to the classes, we go to this response classes. Here again, we will be getting all the examples of it and the methods about it. Like if you want to get the status code or anything, we can see all of them. So here we will be checking firstly the status code. Okay, if the error is like if it is 200, right? If it is successful means, so get me the response body. Okay, maybe I also want to check the status code. So I will say, okay, give me the status code as well. Okay, so give me the status code as well. So I will click on save. Okay, so now I will be getting the response body and the status code. Now, once I run it, let's see what happens. So see, we have got, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we see we have the remote site settings endpoint. So yeah, we have got the unauthorized access. Now why it is having, see, it's giving that because of the remote site settings, it's not there. That's why this error is coming. Okay. So let's talk about it. Okay. So what basically remote site settings or name credentials are there when we are talking about call out? So remote site settings is whitelisting the URL. Basically, you are able to retrieve whatever you want to retrieve only once you whitelist the URL so that you can access the information. Named credentials, we will be discussing in little detail later. So let's create a remote site setting first. So we will come to remote site settings, click on new remote site. Let's create it, weather API. Copy the base URL. And click on save. Okay, so we have the remote site settings here, and Now, once we have the remote site settings, let's see. We have to put it HTTPS. Okay, so we have the base URL with us. Now let's see if it works. So let's execute it again. Let's click on debug only, and see we have got the response. Lucknow region is Uttar Pradesh, India, and the longitude, latitude, all the information. So if we go back, what I did is open execute anonymous window. Here I said class name, method name, and clicked on open log and clicked on execute, and after that debug only. Okay, I got the information. Now, the thing is, if you focus, here still I have to put the endpoint. Even after putting the URL, I have whitelisted, I'm able to access, I'm getting the information. But what if the endpoint changes, like version changes, whatever happens? Again, I have to update the class, right? And that is like every time it is happening, and in every org we are doing. And also we are exposing the key, and other than that also, if we are having username or password or some other type of authentication, we are exposing the whole user the details, don't need to be exposed. So that's the problem with remote site settings. So based on that, something called named credentials came in. So what named credentials does is, with named credentials, you define the endpoint and authentication declaratively. That is, in the named credentials itself, you will be putting the URL, and you will be putting the authentication. That is the key here in this case. And you are all done. You will be just putting the name of the named credentials, and you don't have to actually expose it in the class. And every time you don't have to make the change to the class itself. So when we are talking about remote site settings, there is an endpoint URL which we saw. When we are talking about named credentials, then we have endpoint URL and authentication. So basically the key in this case, or username or password in other cases, or other types of authentication, all that we can put in the named credentials itself instead of putting in the code. Now that we got to know the basic of it, let's see, like, okay, what is the benefit of named credentials? We can skip remote site settings. So let's do that. We can simply delete it. Okay, done, delete it. Then no need to change the code, simply update the name credentials. We will just show you how to do that, but we don't need to change the code. We can reference same name credentials across different orgs. So, if you move to sandbox to production or different sandbox, so you don't have to keep on changing code. You have to make the updates to named credentials, and you're all set. Declaratively, you are good. So named credentials offloads the storage of credentials and authentication to a declaratively controlled process. So that's how it works. So let's see, when we are talking about named credentials so much, what it is. So here we have a named credential. Now in named credential, we have something called legacy. Legacy is the earlier version which we just talked about. The name credentials itself had the endpoint itself, and authentication also you were doing it here only. So everything you were doing here, that was named credential. But now, after winter 23, you don't have to worry about it, because the legacy one, like this is the legacy one, now it will be deprecated. So you don't have to create this, you have to create in a new way, which I will be talking about. So what's new in name credential? So earlier, which we saw is like endpoint and authentication were part of name credentials itself. But now what they have done is they have put endpoint and name credential and authentication in external credentials. Sometimes people are getting confused about name credentials and external credentials. They are used together and not like separately, that okay, now we have to use only external credentials or name credentials. So they are used together, and they help in separating the two parts. Like if you want to make the change only to endpoint, so you just have to update name credentials. Otherwise, if you have to make some change to the authentication, in this case key, you just have to worry about external credentials. So they have divided it. Other than that, we will see that. But earlier, what used to happen when you were creating the name credentials, after that you were able to access it, but access the resource, access the API. But now the thing is that they have made it implicit rather than explicit. What exactly it means is, user now needs to actually put that in the permission set, that particular credentials, only then it will be able to access. And then there are record types, kind of types, like we have legacy, another type we will be just creating. So let's create it and see how exactly it works. So there are some steps to it. Let's see. So that we don't get confused, we will be going and creating. But first is creating external credential, then is creating name credential, then is adding to profile or permission set. It's preferred to add it to permission set. Now let's create it. So the first step is to create a named credential. Okay, so let's put the name, sorry, the external credential. So other API. Now authentication protocol. So they have given all these options. Authentication I talked about, that okay, the other system has to authenticate. They have the API documentation where they tell how you want to access our information. Show me the ID or passport or whatever you want, show me that. So there are types. In our case, it's API key, which is not listed here. So we will be saying custom and click on save. Then the related name credential will come once we are creating it. So we will be going further. Then we have principal. In the principal, we will be putting the name. So let's put admin user. We have the sequence, named principals. So it is setting automatically the identity type. Then we are putting the authentication parameters. So we will be putting the key and we will be putting the value and click on save. So now we have created the principals. Now we are creating the custom header. Okay. Now we can actually directly create the value and it will work perfectly. But that's not the correct way to do it. Otherwise, we would not have created principal at the first place. So if I do it and save it, it will work perfectly, but that's not what we will do. We have to add a formula to it to actually make it, work. So I will double check the name. I think it's at the API. That is the external credentials name dot key. And click on save. Another API. Let's see. Let me go back just a second. Okay, I'm here. Okay, let me recreate. I'm not sure. Okay, we have the value. Okay, let me put it from here. Let's see. Okay, now it's created. Yeah, now it's created. So what we did is we created the weather API. We have used that, and we have actually given the formula credential dot weather API dot key. The key, because the principles we have put the parameter as key, so we are putting that. We could have, like, if we had more parameters, right? We could have added there, and we could have added the formula further. So that's how it works. So now we have that handy. Now we will be actually going to the name credentials. We will be creating new and not the legacy one. And let's create the name. Name is fine. Now we have to put the URL. So let's put URL. So this is the base URL we have to put. So that's the base URL. And then the external credential we have to attach to it. Now it comes about the callout option. So we have like generate authorized header. So this we will be unchecking. This is checked by default. So basically we don't need this because we are creating our header in the external credential itself. So we will be unchecking it. If we were not creating the principal and directly creating the header, so then we didn't have to bother about anything. But um, because we are uh, creating the formula, we have to click on allow formulas in http header because that's what we did, and click on save. Let's see. Okay, this is what we need to do, https, and click on save. So now if everything is done perfectly, our named credentials are ready. Now next step was to add it to profile or permission set. In this case, let me add it to the profile. You can do the same thing for the permission set. Remember, if I'm adding to the profile or permission set, it will be added to that. It will be able to access only only that particular profile or permission set will be able to access the API. Other users won't be able to, who are not part of those profile permission set. You have to actually go to enable external credential principal access, click on edit. This is what you have created. Click here, click save. Only then that particular profile or permission set would be able to access it, otherwise not. Now that you have done that, you go to developer console. So we have the demo weather service name credentials class. In that, see, the difference was here what I was doing is I was putting the complete base URL, showing the key, right? Now we don't have to worry about that. We will be saying call out name credential name. So let's check the name we have put. Also focus one thing, the types, legacy and secured endpoint. So secured endpoint is what we have created, and this is the type, which is the new type. Click on save. So all other things remain same. Just the like URL, we don't need to worry about putting it here, and the key. Now let's see if that works. So open log, execute. Let's see. So see, we have all the details here, location, country, and all the details. So by with the help of it, we are successfully able to create using the name credentials, the new updated name credentials. So I hope you got the difference, that how exactly it works. So now we have the bonus points. So let's have fun with APIs kind of bonus points. Let's explore more APIs. So if you want to access the meal DB, you can go here and check all the meals you want to access, and pizza, biryani, whatever you want to access, you can do that and show that in the Salesforce. Pokemon, so many people like to watch. So the API is there. Makeup for any girls who want to make something in Salesforce. Then fake store API, like if you want to show dummy e-commerce site, and Marvel stands for them. There is again, these all are free APIs. And then if you want to show like television information about the schedules, everything. So imagine that if you wanted to show television information and everything by yourself, creating yourself, it would be so difficult. And again, it's getting updated and everything, the times are changing. How would you do that? So API helps in that way. Same with the fake store, right? So that is the use case of it. So I will be stopping here.
Great, Smriti. Lot of content.
and a lot of information. Thanks. Especially the last ones there. So people could go and try their own APIs and play with the APIs that we have. I think which is great. Let's see. Any questions? Anyone have any questions? I know people are asking for recording session. So the recording, I'll make it available soon by end of today itself. So it will be up on the same event page itself. So after the event, maybe in a couple of hours, if you can go back to the event page and refresh, you would see the recording there. Uh, then any questions for Smriti while she's here? So Smriti is again, I missed to say, but she's joining all the way from US, so it's very early for her. Thanks a lot for taking the effort, Smriti. Uh,
Thank you so much. I was pretty excited. It was like 5 a.m. It's 5 a.m. here. But
yes.
I was scared that if I won't wake up, so I was like waking up till from 3. I was texting my friends, wake me up if I sleep. So it
Oops.
was
Oh,
fun. I really
thank-
enjoyed.
okay.
So, guys, one question I will be having, like, what are the challenges generally you face? Or like one of the guys told me that he would like some kind of documentation regarding Postman, like call out like Salesforce to Postman integration, how it connects, something of that sort. Another message came to me regarding the, like, whole debug when the error comes. It's very hard to, because they are another systems, right? So how to do that? So like that, like what kind of information or where you actually face difficulties when it comes to integration?
I'm not sure if audio is enabled for all to speak, but yeah, if you
I'm
cannot,
waiting on the chat in case you want to. We can just like mm, wait in case you want to say something.
no, that's fine. I think it's a good question. So it's, people, it's good for wait. I mean, we'll just wait for them to put that message in the chat as well if the audio doesn't work. So one question I think Divya is asking: how do we decide when we should use API for integration? When can it be via other types?
What do you mean by other types? Which types you're talking about? The documentation itself gives you the detail. Like if you go to the Twitter or any documentation you are talking about, it gives like how you will be integrating, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, so when she say other types, I think so when the data is in an external system, that's where you need to integrate. That's where the API integration comes in. So so between API, then there are other options, right? Like you, let's say if you can do data imports, like you can do data loader integration or some other type of integrations, right? So I think she wants to understand the difference between API versus, like, let's say a data loader or data loader integration, or even we have app exchange apps that also integrate the other systems, right? So I think question is around that. Yeah, so she's asking like middleware versus API. Yeah.
One person has replied, "Hi Divya, if we have Open API found like Weather API or Postal Code API, we can use the. Otherwise, we need to follow other processes." Yeah, basically fairly, it's like he's talking about the documentation and whether it's public API or what kind of it has. So we have like public APIs or private APIs, and we have composite. So basically, based on the types we have, based on that we are able to integrate.
Right. So when you get a requirement, right? Let's say a client comes and says they have a system and they say we want to integrate with Salesforce. So then you will explore options. So what options we have? So we you look at that system and see whether an API is available. If not, whether any app exchange app is available that integrates these two systems. Generally, if it's a very popular one, app exchange apps are there. Again, behind the scenes of an app exchange app also, the integration is done via API. So you can skip the entire part of coding and everything. The App Exchange app does it. Okay. So basically, we look at the system that you want to integrate with Salesforce and see the options. So API is one of the options. We also have data loader, again, middlewares like MuleSoft you can also use. MuleSoft already has pre-built connectors for that. So you don't need to worry about that integration or the coding part. So because if the MuleSoft connector is able to integrate with that system, then the data flows through that middleware versus this. Again, the factors to consider is if you do API integration, everything you have to take care. Like you have to look into the security, how you want to flow the data, when, what are the conditions, and of course, there's a cost involved between whether your team is able to support it or not. Then comes the middleware, right? So middleware, if you have to purchase another product, you also need your expertise to get the integration done, and the right connector should be available. So a lot of factors needs to be considered before you go into this final decision of which method you want to integrate.
Once again, thank you so much. Another question I see is, can you tell the difference between external and named credentials? So basically, when we are talking about external and named credentials, with external credentials we can put the authentication. With named credentials we are putting the endpoint. So they have separated it out, the named credentials and the named credentials and the external credentials. The reason they have separated it out, because it helps to further like do the granular help, right? Because if you want to like change the endpoint, you can just do it using the named credentials. Another point, which is like the implicit sharing, is about like if you want to give the implicit access. So now you can give to profile and permission set. Even Salesforce admin don't have it, the access, and you are actually giving that access, right? So they have made it more explicitly about giving the access, and that's how they have made the change. And another thing which they have added to the name credential, which I showed you, is about the legacy, like about the type, where they have this legacy and the other type, and you should try to use the other type, and that's how exactly it works.
Okay. What we use trusted CPI site for? Recently, in summer release, external client app is released. What is it used for? Are you aware of this? Maybe if not, we can, because I have not looked into the summer release at the moment. But otherwise, we can come back to it later. Shivani will let you know. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm not very sure on that.
Okay.
I need to check that.
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh, for answering some of these questions. Thanks.
So Mahesh says that about considering name credentials. Okay, that particular answer. Okay, focus on connecting to external services. Okay, then yeah, he gives the information about that they can work together, but it is being streamlined. Yes, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone else?
One of the information I think Mahesh has only confirmed about the trusted CSP is like it is used for specifying trusted URLs that can bypass the default content security policy, and is for like essential for allowing Lightning components and third-party APIs. Thank you so much for adding it here, Mahesh. I think that answers the question about the CSP. Again, I have got the one more use case for trusted sites is embedded external content loading. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. If no other questions, then we'll end the call here. Feel free to reach out to Smriti as well and me. I think we are available on LinkedIn or on the blog that Smriti has, SFDC Amplified. Okay. Thanks a lot, Smriti, for your time and for the effort to get this content out to our community. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much for time of yours and everyone. Thank you for attending the session. And if you have any questions like regarding CSP and other things, reach back to me on LinkedIn and I will try to answer them.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Bye. Bye, all.
Thank you.